had to split day 3. Because day 3 is so huge that there's so much going on there that you got to spend a little bit of time there. If you don't, you're gonna miss up and just move on without getting the good stuff. Are we ready? Are we going already?
Yeah, I gotta go get something for him real quick.
But we're
You're live.
okay. All right, good. Okay, now we're live. All right, so this to me was exactly what I titled it. God's fantastic. I don't know, you can call it whatever you want to, but his amazing green thumb. Because in this, we're going to see, and of course my display, we're going to talk about some of this stuff in a minute. But last week we talked about the dirt. Remember we talked about dirt and how dirt came up out of the water, evidently from pulverized rock. And I can just imagine as God pulverized the rock formations that were underneath the water, or whatever it was. He might have already had it pulverized. I don't know. It didn't go into description of what it actually was. But all we know, as remember, is the earth was what? Formless and void. In other words, it had no particular form, and it was void, which means it was empty. There was nothing in it at that time. So, in saying that, we got to understand that God spoke everything into existence, including the dirt. He made the dirt come straight up out of the water. He divided the seas, put everything in its place, put a mountain here, a rock cliff there, and the plateaus there, and he rose them up high enough to keep the waters in their place. And the dirt he called what? What did he call the dirt? Dry. It was actually dry, but then he called it in the latter part, before he said it was all good, he called it earth. Right, so he called it earth. So in the beginning, when he first started, Mark, you're right, he called it dry. I was calling it dirt, but actually it's dry. So dry was the original word, and then God, after he created everything and put everything in place, he called it earth, okay? So when he called the earth, earth, what did he call the waters after that? Seas. Before they were just waters. So we know that, and we went into the Pacifics, not the Pacific Ocean, but the specifics is what I'm trying to say. Watch out. You're going to need a shield up here if you're too close for those kind of words. But he didn't get into the specifics on everything, but we got into what we know scientifically about dirt and the minerals and everything that are in there. And what was he doing? Does anybody remember what we talked? What was God doing when he created this dirt? We got water and we've got dirt. So we've got a setup and a foundation for what? Life. Life. What'd you say?
I said plants.
Plants and animals and human beings. So everything was in place. Because remember, and this is what we got to keep in mind. And guys, I know sometimes during the week we don't even think about it very much. I'm in a position, I'm in an occupation that I get to live in it all the time. I was in the dirt yesterday. We dug 6 foot deep with an excavator looking for a gas leak. But I got to be out there. I picked off, I don't know, a buddy of mine picked off 9 ticks. I picked off 4. I despise those little creatures. And I was getting flies and mosquitoes, and I get to live in that. It's great. It's a wonderful life. But anyway, I got to get my hands dirty. I jumped down in there, we found a leak, and I got to dig it out. There was clay, there was rock, there was sand, there's all kinds of different things. There's even bugs that come crawling up out of the depth, 6 foot deep, things that are living, organisms that are living down inside that. God created these things. He spoke them into existence, and they're there to sustain life. So God has prepared it with the earth. He made the seas. What's so important about the seas? Why do we have to have water? Because we are 78% water. Plants, I didn't get the percentage, but I do know that plants alone, the fruits and vegetables that we eat, are a lot of it's water. The rest of it, how do you think it, man, if you let it just flow over you and imagine the creation of putting things in place, and he had all of it prepared. Everything that was needed was in the dirt, And every mineral and every piece of work that he could do was mustered in the seas. Remember, the seas were what? Mostly salt water. Our seas are mostly salt water. Now, did he create fresh water too? Sure he did. The waters that were beneath the earth were of a fresh kind, and the waters, I forget what the percentages were. I had it on the slide. I can't remember. It was a small portion. It was like 3% of the earth is like fresh water, and the rest of it's basically salt water. Now, we didn't talk about this last week, and it just popped in my mind, but does anybody know what is so significant about seawater? The difference in seawater and fresh water.
Well, seawater has the same consistency of blood, same amount of salt.
As blood. Okay, all right, that's a good point. That's not where I was going, but that's a good point. You're right, because we have to have a certain amount of, we call it electrolytes, which is salt, potassium chloride. Am I right? That's right, ain't I? What was you saying? I'm sorry. Buoyancy. Okay, see, there's all kinds of points. This is the reason we got to discuss, because I didn't even take any of that into consideration. So I tried to keep basic. Y'all getting all technical on me now. I'm scared to death to go too deep. But here's the thing, look, if I go too deep, I get lost. But one thing that's neat, and you'll find this out, it's what causes hurricanes. It's what causes the big thunderstorms over the oceans. It's our ecology, how it works. We get the rain, right? When it rains, does it rain salt water? Why not? But it draws vapor off the sea because salt water evaporates faster than fresh water. Isn't that neat? How many of you boil noodles or macaroni and you put it in there and you add just a pinch of salt? Do you know why you think it's for flavoring? No, it's to get the water boiling faster. It's got a lower boiling point than fresh water. Isn't that crazy? That's crazy. I learned that in biology like when I was in the 7th grade or something like that. I remember, and it stuck with me because now Ronnie gets mad at me. You're just putting salt in, you're going to run my blood pressure up. I said, no, honey, that ain't the way it works. But I do like the taste of salt. But the idea is that the seas, God made it so they would evaporate quickly and regenerate the earth with fresh water because we can't drink salt water. How do the fish that are in the salt water live in the salt water, but they can't live in fresh water? Isn't it amazing? We're going to get into that when we get into the seas and into the creation of the other little creatures that are going to come up. But today, we're going to talk about the second part of day 3. I didn't put the second part, I just put that up there. But the second part of day 3, we got the earth. He's created the earth, the mountains and everything has popped up. The dirt is dry. And it's called earth. There it is. We got the seas. The ecology is rolling. Remember back on day 1, he put everything in a spin. Now we got it a spinning. The earth's spinning. He's created the dirt. He's created the oceans. And everything's in a spin. Everything is in perfect harmony. Perfect preparation for what is to come. And he starts in this master working. He is a master crafter at what he has done. And if we really look at it, it'll build your faith. It will make you stronger in your belief in him, and it'll make you draw closer to him when you realize who he truly is because of what he's done. But we got to bring to light. We've been darkened in our lifetime. I know I have a mind. Even in science class in schools, they taught us this stuff, but they didn't sit there and say God did it. They said millions of years ago, they lightened it up. They said it happened this way. Some big boom or some amoeba flew down out of the earth. And my question was always, where did the amoeba come from? And something exploded. What was it exploded? What chemicals exploded? Where did those chemicals come? Something had to originate somewhere. There's no theory that these idiots are teaching that make any sense whatsoever without the question, why? Or from where? You can sit and ask questions. Now, we can ask questions, well, where did God come from? Nowhere. He always has been. And he always will be. Remember that? Now, I would rather put my faith in something like that than I would there was a big boomer, an amoeba, that crawled up out of the ocean. Where did the ocean come from? Who created the water? Who created the chemicals of the amoeba? God, there has to be a God. And I'm going to trust in the God of Israel that created these things for us to enjoy, because it is in perfect harmony in the way that he did it. You got to see this, guys. You got to see the dirt, the dry, the earth, the seas, the oceans, and how they work in perfect harmony for the ecology of what we have. I live on Cane Fork. That creek has not stopped since I've lived there. I've been there I've lived on Loudendale for almost 63 years. Have you ever seen the creek quit running? I mean, it's got pretty dry sometimes when we had drought, but it never quit running. There was always a source of water somewhere running out of these mountains. Where did it come from? When God replenished it, what happened? We had all kinds of water. We have more water than we want, but he replenishes the earth. He has a cycle in which he does things. They can pollute the sky with aluminum all they want to they call it cloud seeding. What they're trying to do is make it shade the earth so it'll cause, less temperature raise, because they still say that it's too hot, which they still haven't proven scientifically. I wonder if the thermometer back in 1620 is the same type of thermometer we check it with today. It's not. It's not. So every one of these instruments are new. So they're coming up with their new ideas, and now they can make up whatever they want to get them a grant, to get them some money, so they can make a fortune at trying to make us be fools. And that's basically what they're doing. So, going forward, day 3 special. We start to see, we knew last week we talked about what was the living organisms in the dirt that we talked about. Do you might remember? We already see a type of living organism that was already existent that Moses didn't speak about in Genesis, but when he brought forth the dirt, it had to be fertile. And in that fertile way, he had to have some things in there. Decomposition of some sort, or some kind of worms or something to create an environment that could support plant life, which is what we're going to talk about today, okay? So here we go. And God said, let the earth bring forth grass, and herb yielding seed, and the fruit tree yielding fruit after his kind, whose seed is in itself upon the earth, and it was so. We're going to cover mostly just that. Verse 11, we'll fly through 12 and 13, but the point is going to be mostly on verse 11, because it has the most significant amount of information in it. And then we go on to verse 12, and it says, and the earth brought forth grass, and herb yielding seed after its kind, and the tree yielding fruit, whose seed was in itself after his kind. And God saw that it was good, and the evening and the morning were the third day. So now we've got dirt, we've got seeds, the perfect setup, and he said, let's bring in grass. Let's bring in herbs. Let's bring in trees. And these have special features to them. And this, to me, is one of the most miraculous parts of growing a garden. There's nothing like growing a garden. If I didn't have to work and make a living, you would see me, and there for a while, you probably did see me when you drove by. I was in the garden a lot. I spent a lot of time in the garden, and it was a learning process for me, because I could see the hand of God in a little, especially my tomatoes. I love tomatoes. I love to grow heirloom tomatoes. My favorite is pink brandywines. They make the best tomato juice that you could ever drink or ever put in any kind of chili or soups or anything you do. Rhonda uses it all the time. And it is absolutely, and what's bad, when I get done canning my tomato juice, I look at it, and all the tomato, you call it puree. Y'all know what I'm saying when I'm saying puree? All the tomato puree is kind of laying in the bottom, and the other half of the quart is water. And that came from the tomato. So I know at minimum that tomato is probably 60% water that's sucked right out of the ground, and also what I pump out of the creek on it when it's dry. And it's just the fact that how great is that? And I took a little itty bitty thing, it's a seed, And I took it, because I seeded it the year before, and I got this one little itty bitty seed, it looks like a little slither of paper. They're so thin and so small and so little. And I would take it, and I actually took, I had what we call medium in the gardening world. Medium, it's like potting soil, whatever you call it. But I used that stuff. You know what I'm talking about, that stuff? Oh, no, I put it on leeks for oil leaks. Spagzor is what I call, that's what I want to call it, but it's not, it's spagnesium moss. Okay, it's dehydrated moss is what it is. You know the green stuff that grows on the rock cliffs? They take that and they dry it and they manufacture that for all kinds of different things. But I take that and I put vermiculum. I don't know if you've ever heard of that. It's little white balls that actually hold water in it. And then I put a little black cow. Y'all know what black cow is? It's cow manure. So anyway, you mix it all up. Black cow manure, you buy the bags at Lowe's. You get that, you put that all in there. And I would take that little seed, and I would put it down in there, I put a whole thing. At one year, I had 128, I think it was, tomato plants. I gave a bunch of them away. Gary couldn't grow them. He tried. I think they finally started producing a little bit. But the heirlooms are terrible. They're hard to grow. So you got to have almost the perfect soil, and I never did perfect them, trust me. But that little itty bitty seed, you put that down in there, and in just a few days, you see that little sprout coming up. And when it came up, it came into two little leaves that came out, and that little seed pod was still hung on one end of the leaf. And as it grew, the seed shell of that seed would just pop off, and that seed would continue to grow. And I was going, that is so awesome, it's unreal. So I started planting all kinds of stuff. I planted everything I could get my fingers on. I got seeds, I was going through them a little bit this morning. I got so many seeds, it's unreal. So I actually planted some Blue Lake bush beans today, and I put those in my little seed pots because I've been putting them in the wait until May and putting them in the garden, and either the crows are eating them or the bugs are eating them before they ever really get to grow. So I'm going to grow them in the greenhouse this year and try to get them up and healthy enough to get them planted. But I love Blue Lake, and I'm out of them. I only got one quart jar of those left from a couple years ago, and I'm like saving them like gold. So, but I need to can some green beans because we eat a lot of green beans at the house. So, in saying that, these little itty bitty seeds create such a big thing, it's unreal. Tomato plants, I mean, it's unreal, unreal. I grew corn one year. A lady handed me a handful of what they call bloody butcher. It's a corn. It's a bloody butcher corn. It's a red corn, almost burgundy. It's beautiful corn, beautiful corn. And it's a dent corn, which is a field corn, a grinding corn where you grind up and make flour out of, or cornmeal out of. So anyway, I grew some of those things. Man, those things grew 15 foot tall. I mean, it was unreal how tall they were. And they produced all kinds, and I got all kinds of those things. Now, I never could make good cornbread with it. The lady that gave me the seeds made me some cornbread, and she did great at it, but mine is always spongy or something. I don't know, it's mushy. I cannot get it right. So might have to give some of you cooks some of that cornmeal and see if y'all can do something with it. I don't know what I'm going to do. So I'm going back to the white or yellow corn, but just saying, a corn. Just a corn that you take and you gnaw off like a big old crow. When you get you a corn on the cob, you'll just tear it up. One little kernel produces hundreds of seeds, maybe thousands, depending on how well your crop is. To me, that's marvelous. A tomato, you cut open a tomato, it's full of seeds. I can take one tomato and seed my whole field of nothing but tomatoes. And I'm going to tell you what happened to me a couple years ago. The weeds got ahead of me. And I actually got really messed up with work and could not take care of the garden like I should. So anyway, everything kind of died and rotted. Well, we had a warm fall. October, I went out there, I quit counting at like 250, somewhere like that, tomato plants coming up, where my tomatoes had rotted in the ground and seeded upon themselves and started, just everywhere you looked, it was tomatoes. And they were at high. And I was going, holy cow. And the hardest thing for me in the world to do was take my lawnmower and run over them. But I did. I had to cut them down. Didn't want to, but I did because I love my tomatoes. But these little itty bitty seeds. I put this up here today. I want to show you a couple things, but I want to get into this first part first. Let's look at this one. This guy wrote this, and I couldn't write it any better. So this is one of those commentaries that I read. It's Eliot. This is the second creative act, okay? The first was the calling of matter into existence, talking about the dirt, the dry, which by the operation of mechanical and chemical laws imposed upon it by the Creator was arranged and digested into a cosmos or a big world, okay? That is an orderly and harmonious whole. I love the way he put that because that's it. It's in perfect harmony in what he has done and put it out. These laws are now and ever in perpetual activity. Perpetual. Y'all know what that means? That means forever. It means forever until the Creator itself says it's done, and that's going to be that way. But no secondary or derived agency or person or anything else can either add one atom to the world mass or diminish aught from it. I say, praise his name. We have a God that can create that no one or nothing, no power in this universe that can extinguish it. Now, does that answer the question, is a meteorite going to hit this earth? I can answer that for you. No. And I'm going to tell you why it's no. Because God said no. It's here, and it's here forever until he says it's done. And my understanding is it's reserved for what? Fire. Yeah, it's reserved for us now. But he said he wouldn't destroy the earth with water anymore. He said now the earth will be reserved for fire. So in other words, the earth's going to be consumed because he's going to build us, he's in the process of building us, a new heaven and a new earth. Isn't that awesome? But it's going to be different. It's going to be different. There's not going to be any sin there because you know why? The devil's going to be cast into the lake of fire. He's going to be gone. We're not going to have to worry about that stuff no more. That's gone. Now, there's some theology in there that you can shake around. I've had these guys twist it a little bit. Well, the devil's going to be loose for a certain... Not in the new earth. Not in the new earth. So, if anybody was thinking that, come down a notch. Anyway, but that, to me, the way this guy wrote that was perfect. Perfect. And I love that orderly and harmonious whole. He put everything in perfect order. Everything's ready for the next step of creation. The yielding of seed. Okay, now he said, this is another commentary I was reading. These guys are really good at putting this together. They were really into it, and that's what I was excited about last week. I'd already read ahead and started reading these commentaries, and I couldn't put them all in there. There's some of these guys put words in ways that I can't put them. I just can't throw them out there. Whose seed is in itself, that is, in some part of itself, either in the root or the branch or the bud or fruit, which is sufficient in itself for the propagation of its kind. I want you to understand and get a hold of the word kind. K-I-N-D, kind. From generation to generation, as long as the world shall endure without any new creation. How astonishing the wisdom and power that could affect this. Oh God, how wonderful art thou in counsel and how excellent in thy working. Do y'all feel that? Y'all feel that when you think about wisdom? How astonishing the wisdom and power that could affect this creation. How astonishing is that? Oh God, how perfect. How wonderful art thou in counsel and how excellent in your working. Man, he said this. This guy's been probably dead for 100 years. I don't know. But he had a wonderful view. I could feel what he's saying when he started reading about this propagation of seeds into the ground to create new. And what he was saying, it was sufficient in itself for its own kind, for generation to generation to generation, never to stop. What I tell y'all about water. We're still drinking the same water that Moses drank. We're still drinking the water that Noah drank. Are you with me? There is no new water. The water is on a cycle. And that cycle is, it goes to the ocean, and it forms a cloud, and in evaporation, comes back over the earth, and it rains, and it goes into the fresh water. They pump it into Elk River, or God pumps it into Elk River. They pump it out of Elk River, and they put that nasty stuff that they put through it and through all the nasty pipes, the sewer lines and everything else, and they run it into your house to drink. I suggest you get a filter. It's the nastiest water you ever drink. I'd rather go drink out of Elk River by itself than I would after it gets here. That's how bad it is. Y'all looking at me like I'm crazy, but I'm telling you the truth.
Look what man has done to the seeds. Every time God makes something and does something perfect, then man comes along, just like if you got heirloom seeds.
Yep.
Now you've got seeds that you can only use them one time. They don't propagate or seeds.
Right. You can't seed them. You can buy some fruits from the grocery store and you take the seeds out of them, put them in the ground, they won't grow. And if they do, I did that once. And you know what I got? A plant came up. That's all it came up. Yeah. It did not bear fruit. Isn't that crazy? Because I really thought I could do it. I thought, well, see there, it's coming up. Man, it was healthy too. But you know why? Because it had been an heirloom, it had been GM'd, genetically.
GMO.
Is that spelled right? Modified. So we can modify things. We can modify things. Now, how many of you seen the labels on your food now? It says bioengineered. You seen that? This product contains bioengineered products or whatever it is. Okay, what that is, in a lot of cases, is genetically modified plants. What they do is, it's all about the money. Let me tell y'all what it is. It's all about the money. It's not about your health. So they will change the genetics of plants to make them more prolific. Does that make sense? Makes them more prolific. In other words, they're less apt to get any kind of disease. I seen a guy selling tomatoes one time, and I said, man, that's a perfect tomato. He said, yeah, they're so genetically modified. He said, but I get 3 crops a year out of them. Holy cow. You know why they're getting 3 crops a year out of them? Because they propagate real quick. And guess what? It makes more money. But they taste terrible. They're nasty. They don't even taste. You want a tomato. Now, you might have to cut some of the bottom rod off of it, but you get a hold of one of my tomatoes, I guarantee you'll have blisters in your mouth. That is how good mine are. Y'all like to eat them when the blisters come in your mouth? You know what I'm talking about? They got so much acid in them. That's the way them pink brandy wines. They are, but man, your taste buds will be jumping up and down with joy because you sliced one of them and put it on a bologna sandwich.
Oh, the yellow and the orange. I love the.
Yes, but the yellow and the orange are lower in acid.
Okay, it's good to know.
So to me, if it don't put blisters in my mouth, I don't like them. I like some of the yellow ones are pretty good, but honestly, the red ones that are heirloom red ones are, man, they're just hot to try. I love eating them, and they make the best juice. And you can, some, it's funny when you go to can, and some of you already know this, some things you have to pressure cook. And sometimes, some things you can you water bath. And usually it's got to do with the acid content of the material or whatever you are, canning. So with tomatoes, my tomatoes especially, I can put them in a water bath and be done in no time, and I can have a bunch of it up. And I've got the tomato juice I got in there, I think it's from 2022. And it looks as perfect as it was. I popped some open not too long ago and took a big swig of it, and I'm not kidding you, it tastes like it was growing on the vine. It's wonderful. So it's just got that much goodies to it. So I'm bragging about my tomato plant. So make Gary watch this. I want him to be envious that I haven't started any this year, so I'm going to have to go buy some. I haven't even had time to seed anything this year. So anyway, this is one of the things that we're doing now, and that's where you were going with that, was the genetically modified stuff. And now we're getting stuff where mankind is stepping in and helping God out with some of the stuff. But the problem is, why is it that we have bottom rot in our heirlooms? Why do we have our heirlooms are more subject to disease? What happened? Does anybody know? Happened a long time ago. Matter of fact, it happened in Genesis. It's called sin. Yeah, well, it was the added pestilence because of our sins. When Adam sinned in the garden, remember what God told him? He said, by the sweat of your brow. In other words, you ain't gonna go over and pick that big heirloom off there and take a chomp of it and then ain't got a rot or a bug or something on it. Now you got to work by the sweat of your brow. That means you're going to have to be out there ahead of the bugs, getting them off of there and making sure that there ain't nothing on there. And you can put all kinds of different stuff. My dad used to put 7 dust. Y'all use 7 dust? That is the most poisonous stuff in the world. Do not put it on your tomato plants. Somebody said use cinnamon. Sprinkle cinnamon on them, and the bugs will leave it up. So I don't know. I haven't tried that. I usually go out there and flick them off. But I ain't had time to do that either. But anyway, everything is dependent on all kinds of different things when it comes to growing. But the heirlooms, to me, is what God put on this earth. Let's keep them there. And that's just my opinion. So, all right, so the first thing we see he puts into play is the grass. Now, the grass is interesting. I had to do a little bit of homework on grass because I don't grow grass. I cut grass. And how many chunks I tear out of it with my lawnmower blade, I don't care because it's just less I have to cut. Are y'all feeling that way? That's just the way I feel about it. I don't have to worry about cutting it when I chunk it up or run over it with another piece from my tractor or something, so tear it up. But anyway, there are different types of grass, okay? Each type of grass can reproduce by at least one way, many by more than one. And I'm not gonna, I'll let you guys read this. I'll get out of the way so you can read this if you want to. But the rhizomes, as they call them, is what happens to most grass, not all grasses. Some grasses actually have flowers that you can't see. They're usually right down to the base. They produce a flower. The wind comes by just like any other plant, and the pollen is flown or blown by the air and moved over, and it pollinates the female of the other grass form, and that's how they reproduce, just like a flower, just like corn or any other vegetable that grows a flower, okay? So some grasses do it this way, but the grass that you grow in your yard is like this. It uses rhizomes. A rhizome, I'll tell you what I noticed about this when I started studying, is that's how a strawberry, that's what a strawberry does. Now, you can seed strawberries. That's the reason I brought it. If you, this poor pitiful thing, Rhonda wouldn't let me bring her good ones. This is going to be chicken bait. So anyway, if you look real close, if you're on a strawberry, have you seen the dents that are in it? Little itty bitty dents. Little itty bitty dents in that strawberry. See them?
Yeah.
Every one of those is a seed. One seed to grow multiple plants. Strawberries are very, what we call prolific. In other words, they really can grow. I've got 1 billion of them, and they're blooming everywhere. I'll soon have tomatoes. If the deer don't get to them, I've covered them up. Deer wiped me out twice last year. They wiped me out, and they started to grow back and bloom, and they got them again before I got them covered up. One night, they slipped in on me, and I didn't know it, but my dog gave up the ghost on being a guardian. Now he just wants to be everybody's friend, including the deer. He can't hear nothing, so he can't hear him coming, so usually he's in the back in his bed asleep. He don't care what comes up to the door. So strawberries, they have rhizomes. Once you plant them, the seed, and they grow, they continue to grow like grass because they get these little shoot. Have y'all ever heard of strawberry shooting? They'll shoot. There'll be a shoot come off of that thing, and you'll go down until it finds a place to grab into the dirt, and it forms roots right there. And it will grow another strawberry plant. And eventually, that stem in between will die after the tomato plant, or strawberry plant, got tomatoes on the mind, don't it? Strawberry plant, when it gets healthy enough to grow on its own, that thing will die in between. And to me, that is miraculous in itself. God made it to where those things would creep, and they would continue to creep. That's the way a lot of our invasive species work. Kudzu is terrible. That's the worst stuff in the world. It creeps, and it just keeps creeping, and it takes over, and it's really bad because you can't even walk through that stuff. It's crazy. But anyway, this is the way these things reproduce, by shooting, or a strawberry in this case, you can plant the seed, you could cut these off, and you could cut this off right here. Now, I don't know, I bought this in the store, who knows, probably from Brazil or somewhere, and they shoot it with all kinds of gamma rays and laser beams and I don't know, some other alien tools, I think. And anyway, but you could cut this off, put it in dirt, and it'll start to sprout and grow strawberries, which is pretty cool as far as I'm concerned. But I've got enough strawberries. If anybody wants any, I'll be more than happy to give you some. plants. So the grass continues to grow. Did it ever stop? Did it ever stop? Did the grass ever quit growing? Does the grass ever quit growing in Tim Williams' yard? No, it doesn't. I cut it the other day, and it's already, that was 3 days ago, I think. 3 days ago I cut it, and it's already up and ready to cut again. The dandelions, oh my. I tried to transplant a dandelion and bring it to y'all, but it was dead by the time I got over to it seed. They don't do well when you take them out of the rocks. I don't know what, I put it in some beautiful soils nourished with all the, the black cow and all that stuff. I put it in there. It was the most nourished soil you could ever put it in, and it dies. But I had to dig it out of a rock pile to get it, because that is what they thrive in. I took it out of its environment, put it in what I thought was a better environment, but it wasn't a better environment for the dandelion. Now, to me, I'm going to talk about the dandelion a little bit. The dandelion is a weed, as we call it. It's a grass, per se, okay? Actually, it's a flower. I think it's rated as a flower. And here's what's really interesting about that. Does anybody know what's special about a dandelion?
Kills cancer.
Kills cancer. It sure does. Anything else?
Good for your heart.
Good for your heart. Yes, it is.
It's like a superfood.
Great for your circulation. Anybody else? Cleanses your liver. That's one of the number one things that it'll cleanse your liver. It'll clean your liver out. It will cure fatty liver. Cure it. Why ain't we using it?
Roundup. They colonized it. We were talking about this the other day.
Was you really? That's funny. Y'all quit talking about the stuff I'm going to teach on. I don't know how y'all do that. Dandelions have been considered a weed. You got to get rid of them when they're in your yard. They'll take over your yard. Why do they take over your yard? Because God's trying to tell you something. He's trying to tell you something.
Amen.
Quit taking the garbage that they're sending over here from China that was made from some kind of synthetic material that you're ingesting in your body. And it's killing us. But we all continue to do the same thing. Continue to do the same thing. What's unique about garlic and honey? Anybody know what that is? It's an antibiotic. It's an antibiotic. Why don't we take garlic and we'll pop a 5 or 10 day antibiotic that the doctor gives us in a capsule that we have no idea what's in it, before we'll take garlic that we grow in our own garden and some local honey and mix it all up, let it sit and ferment for a little bit, and ingest it. It's amazing.
Carrots the same way.
Yes, it's stuff that we don't even think about. What's happened to the world is that we've been robbed from what God has created for us.
Amen.
I'm serious, it's crazy. We have been robbed of that. We've been lied to. Dandelion is a weed. You should kill it. You should use Roundup. You should squirt it with something and kill it dead, because it gets a root that goes down. It's called a taproot. When that thing forms, that root goes straight down. Rocks, it'll go around a rock and come right down on the other side and intertwine into a rock, and you can't dig it out. It's the hardest thing in the world to get that root out, because you know why? That's where the nutrients lie, in the root. You take that root and you dry it and you crunch it up in little pieces. You put it in a tea bag or in some kind of a screen, or just put it in a coffee filter and run some hot water over it and drink you a little bit of tea. It'll cleanse your liver, it'll cure cancer, and it will fix your heart if you got heart issues, and it will increase your circulation in your blood, and a few other things.
They make a tool that you can dig that out. It's a long life thing.
I'd like to have one.
Well, I would do it on the back of it. You push it down in, and it's got 2 forks on the side.
It pops it up.
Pops it right up.
Well, I did it with one of them little itty bitty gardener shovels that you get at Walmart or whatever. I shoved it down into that rock like that, and I twisted, and that's what happened. The handle just twisted. The blade stayed down in the ground. But they're mean. But I'm telling you what, it's called lion's tooth, is what they call it, dandelion. Why they call it lion's tooth? Because the leaf looks like lion teeth, because they're jagged looking fellers. That's how you identify it. The leaf is full of nutrients. The flower, and I've tried this. I took a bunch of the flowers, the big yellow flowers. Now, I kind of ruined I come from a different world here on Loudendale, I guess. I don't know what it is, but you have to roll everything in grease and flour. I don't know what it is, then you fry it. Why do you have to do that? But anyway, they were delicious. Of course, you know, if you put enough butter and grease on stuff, it's probably going to be good. It don't matter what you cook. But it was good. And you can eat the flowers. I ate one yesterday. Yeah, it was yesterday. I ate one. I just threw it in the mouth and chewed on it. I got a bug or something in it. It wasn't very tasty, but they're really, really good for you. So make a tea out of them. That's the best way to do it, is make a tea out of them. You put the flowers down and make a tea. Now, that ain't what I'm talking about in creation, but I'm telling you, have you ever seen the seeds of a dandelion? The big sprouts with a big puffy ball on them, you can't stop them. You can't stop them. There's two invasive species that I can think of in my garden that I cannot stop. One of them is dandelion. And I brought in some dirt and I put it in my raised bed for my strawberries. And I have one plant grow up out of that thing that was mean. And it's called the North American blackberry. And I grabbed that thing and pulled it out of my strawberries, and I thought, And I put it in one of my pots, and every one of my pots has got blackberry bushes growing up out of them. They're as bad as the dandelions, but I'm going to raise every one of them because I want blackberries, because my blueberries ain't growing. I'm just not a blueberry guy. But all these things God created for us. Now we see the seed. Now we're already ahead of it. We got the seed, the herb. What the Hebrew definition is glisten and also green. So when we look at it, herbs are widely distributed and widespread group of plants, and they also, number one, are good for flavoring your food. Number two, for medicinal purposes. Isn't that cool? God has provided us a way to heal ourselves. Do you know, here's what's interesting. If we really look at the whole picture, when he created this garden, okay, the Garden of Eden, was it perfect? Absolutely. It was perfect. What was in the midst of the garden? The tree not only of good and evil, in which they should not have eaten of, but what else was in there? The tree of life. The tree of life. Think about that for a minute. He created a tree that they eat from. They were allowed to eat from that one. Because you know what it did? It sustained life forever. Sustained life forever. They would have never died. That's the reason they were kicked out of the garden. Just over one tree that they were not allowed to eat of no more because they sinned. Because they took, he said, you can eat of this one all you want to. Whoops. But you can't eat of this one. And of course they eat. How dumb are we? We'll eat of the one, of course, the one that's the most tempting because it's the one we can't touch. Is that not the way sin works in our lives? We know it's wrong. We're tempted by it. We see it. And it looks good to eat. And we end up eating it, even though God said, don't eat it. And we do that with our sins. Did you know that?
That's why they ate it, because he told them not to.
Exactly. But that's our nature. It's like it's in our DNA or something. What's wrong with us?
If God don't make it, don't take it.
That's right. I agree with that. Agree with that. And these herbs are also used for fragrances. Now, I've got an herb that I'm growing. I'm sure it might be. I don't think it's genetically modified, but I'm not sure how they invented it. But it's basil. But no, it's not basil. It's mint. Y'all ever grow mint? Mine's chocolate mint. Chocolate mint. I looked out I finally got to go out to my garden a little bit this morning early, and I got out there and I looked and I seen my mint. I thought it all died out last year. I thought I'd never see it again. But I looked down there and it's all over the place. It's growing again. And my mom always warned me that mint will take over if you let it. So that's the reason I always put it in a pot. But it's growing. And I reached down, popped the leaf off and put it in my mouth, and it tastes like a what's them little round circle candy bars that I like? Peppermint patty. There's like a peppermint patty taste to it. That's how good it is. It's called chocolate with mint in it. Oh, it's good. is good. Okay, so we better move on. All right, so there's the herb. Now the fruit tree. Now here we're going to cover some things that I've got right here. We got fruits up here. We got fruits of two different kinds, okay? Now when it said fruit, it didn't necessarily mean fruit like an apple. It did include a fruit like an apple, okay? But it also, fruit is what else? Does anybody know? More, something else. What's the deer eat? Here's the other fruit. Guess what that tree is? It is. It's a white oak, actually. That's a big white oak. But I've got a white oak that sent down a seed. There's the, see the acorn?
Yeah.
The tree is growing out of the acorn.
Yeah.
So that is the other fruit. A nut is considered a fruit. Y'all see that? I think that's the coolest thing in the world. Now you want to tell me that God ain't great? That he can take a nut that we walk over, that we crush in our cars when we drive over them, and we do all these crazy things with nuts. We think they're a nuisance. The deer love them. You see that? You see that nut? Yes. Yes, they're.
Boiled about 3 times.
Yeah, you got to get the tannins out of them.
Yeah, boil 3 times to the water.
I'm sure you've seen that.
Oh, yeah.
So in saying that, we have another fruit or a nut. So we identify it differently. God identified it as a fruit. The fruit bearing seed after its kind. So we see that we have fruit trees. So I put this little thing up here. Fruit trees grow on trees or bushes. It contains seeds. Everything contains seeds. Anything that God created on this third day, it had seeds. It had seeds in it because he said seeds after their own kind. We're going to get into that. The edible part in the fruit is the fleshy part. The nutrient levels are high in vitamins and fiber. Do we need vitamins and fiber? Yes, we do, okay? Examples, apple, banana, orange, so we got that under, we already know that. The nut grows on trees and bushes. Either one contains seeds, hard shell with edible seed inside. High and healthy fats and proteins. Now, look at the nutritional value on the fruit. High in vitamins and fiber. High in healthy fats and protein. Why do you think that they're different? The nut has one particular item and the fruit has something else. So the fruit being full of the vitamins and fiber that we need, and of course nuts have fiber too, but the nuts have the healthy fats with protein and a higher, what we call it, caloric value. In other words, it has more calories in it. Why do we want to stay away from calories? Because we're fat. If we lived on nuts and fruits, we wouldn't be fat. We live on Burger King and Taco Bell. That's what we live on. And there ain't none of that come from fruits or vegetables or wheat or anything else God created. I think it was something that, whew, Bill Gates probably come up with something there, probably maybe some bug guts or something. I don't know. But I do know that, oh, by the way, if you want to look at this one too, there's actually 4 trees in this. Last year at my house, the beech trees went nuts. When I say nuts, there was nuts everywhere. I sat over there for an hour and a half eating those nuts. You can eat them right out of the shell. Now, there's a lot of work in them because they're very small. Here's the nut. I don't know if you've ever seen a beech nut.
Triangular.
Yeah, it's a triangular shaped beech nut. Now, this one's kind of dried up and withered, but the beech nut, that nut is full of nutrients. But you got to really work on it to really have you a meal out of it. Full. You eat these? Yeah, and I used to eat them when I was young, and you know, they come down and they got this kind of like a burry-looking shell that the nuts in, kind of like a chestnut tree.
We had a hickory nut.
Yeah, hickories too. I used to eat hickory nuts all the time. Yeah. We used to go up there to Burnsville and camp out. They had a big hickory, big shellbark hickory up there. Drop nuts in the fall time when we was up there hunting. We'd go over and get all kinds of them, crack them. I don't know if you was ever with it. I probably didn't give you any.
You ever get run out of a beech tree area by a bunch of squirrels?
Do what now?
I got run out of the park. Beech nuts was all over the place and I was eating them. A bunch of squirrels
Hey, listen, he sounded like he was in that movie. What was that movie where the squirrels were up there with the nuts waiting? They said, "Hurry!" They start throwing nuts at him. That's pretty bad, Joe. I believe that's when I would have to claim that God gave us dominion over the animals.
Yeah. Got a whole group of them.
Yeah, well, that's true. If it's an army of them, there ain't much you can do about that. You just have to go. So anyway, this fruit tree, and I know I'm kind of going over this, but you got to understand, there's a seed out of an apple. Right there it is. It's so little, but it grows a big apple tree. And we see that in our apple trees. We see the trees just flourish with apples. I used to have one in the yard, and my neighbor killed it, but anyway, that's another story. Fruits and nuts, when it comes to nutritional value, fruits and nuts differ significantly. Fruits are known for being rich in vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants, and a great source of essential nutrients, and this is kind of what we talked about. Nuts being the high protein, the others with the nutrients in it. What was God doing? He made grass, he made herbs, and he made fruits and vegetables. Fruits and nuts. What was God doing? What was he preparing for? He was preparing the feed time because it was going to sustain life. It was going to sustain life for these people, are you ready? That were made a little lower than the angels. A part of being a little lower than the angels is being that we had to have these nutrients that God created for us to depend on him. Are y'all with me on this? What have we done to ourselves? We got to the point where we depend on the government. We depend on man. We depend on somebody else to do something for us. We have become terrible at this. You can't get a soul to work right now because you know what? They know somebody's going to take care of them. The government won't let them down. Somebody's going to, you can go to a shelter, you can get food, you can do, and listen, I'm not dogging any of those. I'm dogging the ideology that we have created in mankind not to be self-sufficient, not to be able to take care of themselves with what, because it's a slap in the face of God that he created us to take care of ourselves, and we can't do it. We become dependent on everyone else, and now people expect people. And that's the society we live in. That's the reason that we are falling into a pit.
They don't want us to be able to live on our own. And they've got to have control of us. They have control of us. If they feed us and do all that, then they've got control of us.
But look, let's put in perspective something here. Didn't want to go elongated on this, but I'm going to. So, you say government. I say Satan.
Amen.
Say what?
I say Satan.
Yeah.
What's the best way to destroy us by forming something to rule over us? The children of Israel are a perfect example. The children of Israel were doing just fine. When they spoke with God, when they communicated with God, when they were in God's will, doing what God wanted them to do, He gave them a land. He gave them everything that they could ever imagine needing. Manna, honey, a land that flowed with milk and honey. He sent the grasshoppers to run the people out. Grasshoppers! Sent grasshoppers into a nation and run that whole nation out so they could walk in and not have to fight. And give them everything that those people had already made. Some people say, well, that was cruel. No, that's what God did for them. He made it perfect for them. And you know what they wanted to do? They wanted this. They wanted a government. So they said, give us Saul. Give us Saul. Saul was the first king. He started off good. God honored him and anointed him in the beginning. And then he fell short because we was talking about this. He got ahead of God. He got way ahead of God. He started doing things on his own. And that's exactly what any government will do. They'll get ahead of you or get ahead of God. They'll get completely ahead of God, and the next thing you know, they're the gods. They're the controllers. They're the ones that will take over. And the only thing the government can't touch is you being self-sufficient. Yet. That wasn't even really my plan to teach tonight, self-sufficiency. But we should examine what, and we can see it right here in what God has created for us. So we got to be able to see this. Whew. I want to cover the kind real quick. Ken Ham said this, said, when describing life, the Bible doesn't use the modern term species. Although, if you look it up, you're going to find it uses the word, what was the word? When the Hebrew word for what God was talking about, the kind, is modern day English throws out the word species. And it's not really species. They struggle when trying to find a word to match that. But it's like a disbursement. A disbursement. It's about the best word I can come up with. Or a sort. A sort was one of the words that I seen. This is what kind means. Of a sort. Okay? So, this gives us a hint of what a kind is. A group of plants or animals that can reproduce with one another. Creation biologists have determined that kind is about the same level as family in our modern taxonomy. God built a huge amount of variety into each kind's DNA so they can diversify as they fill the earth. This leads to new species forming, but only within a kind. What we observe is exactly what the Bible says. Kinds only reproduce within its kind. Okay, let's think about a canine. You got a dog? It's canine. Now, how many dogs did God create? Did he create all the dogs the Amish created? No, the Amish can create any dog that you ever want. Trust me. They won't live very long, but they can create them. So my point is this. What Ken Ham is talking about when he created a canine, that canine could have been a wolf. I don't know what it was. It was some type of canine type animal. Now, do canines mate with felines? It's impossible. It won't work because they're not of the same kind. Can a feline mate with an ape? No, won't work. Can an ape with a pig or a cow? Do you see the kinds? It just doesn't work that way.
Thank God.
It does not work that way. So in saying that, yeah, thank God. Yeah, could you imagine? So that tells me something. When the Idiocy crew gets on television and tells you came from an ape and a human can't mate. It won't work. It's not even possible because they are of two different kinds. Are y'all with me on that? So don't let anybody tell you that you came from an ape because it is impossible for you to have came from an ape. Your DNA is made up in total different than an ape because you are of one kind, humankind, coming from the man Adam in the beginning, and he created Eve a little later, and they came together and had children, and that is where we're at today. So in saying that, don't forget that. Who can account or comprehend the structure of a single tree or plant? The roots, the stem, and this is the stuff I wanted to get into, but I knew with time limit, I was no way. And then we did cover the fruits. We didn't cover much about the flowers. We didn't cover anything about the leaves. The leaves are some of the most miraculous parts of a grass or a tree. If you grab a leaf, one leaf, turn that leaf over and look at the back side of that thing at the veins that are going through it. It looks like one of them weightlifters' arms or the veins that are going through it that provides that. When the leaves catch the rays of the sun, photosynthesis takes place, and that's what creates this plant in a way that makes it, there's my word again, prolific in its own self. And it also draws in the moisture from rain and sucks it right down. And also the rain hits the ground and the roots are pulling it up. It's getting rain. I know my tomato plants, I can go both ways on that. It gets the water from the ground and it also gets water from the leaves. So it creates a path of each way that these plants can grow and be great. There's the sap vessels, the air vessels. Air vessels, I would like to call it the CO2 vessels. Because every time I exhale, my tomato plant breathes in. Are y'all with me? Remember we talked about that. We breathe in oxygen. We exhale CO2, carbon dioxide. The plants suck in the carbon dioxide and exhale the oxygen. Perfect harmony. Perfect harmony. God put it all in place, spun it all into direction, and here we are today. The rind, the bark, the woody fibers, the stem, and the roots. We ain't getting even talk about the roots. Some have tap roots, some have roots that grow outwards. Some actually grow outwards, like we was talking about with the strawberry plant, that grow out and pop up another somewhere else. How many of you ever had to deal with bamboo? Did you know that bamboo is a grass? It is a grass, and it used those rhizomes. It takes shoots. Y'all seen the shoots of a bamboo? I know y'all. I got that mess up there myself. But the bamboos take a shoot, and then next thing you know, it looks like that picture we seen there a while ago. Yeah, they travel underneath it. Those are called rhizomes. That's the baby of another plant that comes up and shoots up somewhere else. It's crazy how prolific those are. They really grow. Something to think about.
When we have the floods, where it just takes off some of that and takes it down and brings
Yeah.
water and then comes, finds itself right there on somebody else.
Yep, they do. Now here's something to think about. Now God is putting plant life here because man, until the flood, was a vegetarian. Man will eat nothing but fruits and nuts. The formula of the plant life was completed the third day. So I really wanted to cover like 6 more weeks of this because it is awesome. If you know all the little things that's going on in here. Man will eat nothing but fruits and nuts until the flood. A lot of people do not know that. They don't know that at all. They do not know the fact that God made the fruits and the nuts for us to eat. My grandfather used to argue with my dad all the time. We go to Florida, and that'd be the first thing they'd argue. We get down there at 11 o'clock at night because we drove 18 hours to get there. And then we get down there, and him and Dad would argue until 2 o'clock in the morning over Bible questions that they was talking about. I don't know. Sure, man, I didn't think it was ever going to shut up. But it was either that or them loud mosquitoes that was flying around my head when I got down there. But my grandfather always said it was mankind is meant to eat nuts and fruits and grass and vegetables and things that he said, if we would have been meant to eat meat, he would have gave us teeth like a canine to rip the flesh. And I said, well, I don't know about that, because I did see where God told Noah after the flood, after they got out of the ark, God told him, said, all the animals will fear you because you will now be able to eat their flesh. That happened after the flood. Now, give you something else to think about for next week.
I'm going to, I've got 2 quarts of seeds, that I can't throw away seeds.
Throw them out in the yard and let them grow.
I was going to say, I'm going to hedge your way and throw it.
I've got plenty of seeds. I don't need no seeds. Here's what I want you to think about, okay, is this. So man wasn't allowed to eat, not that he wasn't allowed, but he was made to eat only fruits and vegetables until the flood. The animals didn't become scared of the humans until after the flood. So before the flood, you got to take in consideration, did the animals talk and communicate with the humans? Y'all thinking, Tim, you're crazy. I know where a donkey talked to Balaam later on in the Old Testament. A donkey spoke to Balaam. How did Eve talk to a serpent and not be scared of it? If a serpent crawled up next to one of you guys, would you be going, what in the world? Why was she even communicating with the serpent?
He didn't look like a serpent we have today.
But he is a serpent. We don't know what he looked like. He might have been beautiful. I'd say he was. I'd say that we're beautiful. But point matter was, the serpent spoke, and Eve answered. If I go out in the woods, and one of them squirrels of yours come up to me and start saying, hey, these are our nuts, I'm going to say, you can have them. I'm going to be out of there. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
She was communicating with the serpent. And she wasn't scared of him. He sat there and convinced her to take a bite. It says he was more subtle. This serpent was more subtle. In other words, cunning. Think about that. Can animals talk? Hey, listen, my mind is crazy, and you all now know that. But that's where I go with this stuff. Is it possible that animals can speak, although God has probably shut their mouths for whatever reason? I don't know why, because it would probably really mess with. But now we have dominion over the animals, more so than anything.
With each other.
Can the animals communicate? Oh, I know they can do that. They can do that with grunts, and I got chickens. My rooster comes out of there, and I'll throw them some food scraps. They like different, vegetables and stuff you throw in there. He'll come out there, and he makes a particular noise. It's kind of a high-pitched, cook, cook, cook. Them hens will run at him because he'll pick it up and drop it and show them where it's at. He won't eat it. He'll drop it and show it. They're communicating. Now, they don't speak English, although they understand my English. Get out of the way. But the thing of it is, they know how to communicate with each other. And it's interesting that, I don't know what language Balaam spoke, but that donkey knew his language. He even said, I've been with you since I was a colt. And you're treating me like this. You know that I wouldn't run one way or the other. Can you not see what's ahead of us? And there was an angel with a flaming sword in front of him. He was warning him. And I'm sitting there thinking, a donkey talked? You say, oh, Tim, that was just a specific case. What about the garden? And there's other places that we see where animals spoke. Isn't that weird? Anyway, something to think about. Something to think about. Think about also the fact that we only eat fruits, or mankind only eat fruits and vegetables until the flood. After the flood, was free reign on the animals. And the animals were scared of us after that. They weren't scared of us before that. Remember, Adam named every one of them. He went out and spoke to them. The problem is, there was none of them his kind.
The life expectancy went down also.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Maybe that has something to do with
Maybe, I don't know.
the oxygen.
I have no idea. Any questions or remarks?
Well, I think it was a great lesson.
Well,
And I want you to continue that, and I think you did a fine job.
thank you. But we'll move on to day 4 next week, and we'll be ready to go. So day 4, if you want to read ahead of this. But anyway, try to dwell on this a little bit, because honestly, this is really important to your being, your self-being. Understanding Genesis, especially the creation, is the most wonderful thing that is placed before us, and we need to make sure we grab all of it, okay? All right. Glenn, we're clear? Oh, anybody got any questions or any remarks?
You know, a lot of people don't know any of this.
No, they don't.
And the current day kids don't know it.
Well, you tell them it's online.